If you, yes can be just the letter yes. Very good. I think some of you are beginning to type. Have you ever used a blender in the kitchen? Oh, good, good. Usha Bhatt uses a blender, Monica uses a blender, Parvati, Precious Priya, Namrata, and so many others use a blender. Okay, that's great. That makes my job a little easier. If you use a blender in the kitchen, you already know what blending is. I mean, it's very simple. What do we do? Whatever we want to be blended, we put in the blender and we switch on power and it blends us the way we want it. So what do we put in the blender? Whatever we want to be blended. So if we want some 2 ingredients, suppose you have 2 fruit pieces. So 2 kinds of fruit pieces you put in the blender and you mix them together, that becomes a blended juice. Suppose you are making a chutney in your kitchen and you have 2 or 3 ingredients you put in that and you blend them together, that becomes a blend. Chutney is a blend. And so many other things also you blend. It is exactly the same thing in terms of your class also. But what can be blended in a school? What can be blended in terms of your curriculum? What can be blended in terms of education? What can be blended in terms of assessment? What can be blended in terms of schedule are what we are going to discuss today. And that's where I begin. So I am going to make my presentation in 4 parts. So I'm just going to tell you what is this blended learning. I am going to tell you why should we blend what we are going to blend. And I am going to tell you, okay, if we decide to blend something, how do we do that? How? The how part of it is the 3rd part. And the last part, in case we have some time left, right? And I'll also discuss maybe 1 or 2 problems that we have in doing this and what solutions can we find. And throughout this presentation, you will all be cooperative, you will all be participative, you will all be interactive. Please feel free to type your questions, statements, answers, suggestions, etc. and also to raise your hand. Okay, point number 1. What is B learning? B teaching. B stands for blended, like e-learning, right? Like digital learning. B learning. B learning is, written different ways. One of the ways it's written is small b and capital L. Some people put a hyphen in between. Don't worry how it's written. It's B learning. B learning stands for blended learning, right? I think some of you might have heard of this already, and some of you knowingly or unknowingly might have practiced it already. The simplest is, even when we were studying, when we were students at school, our teachers used to teach something in the class and they used to give us some homework. So the homework was to be done at home and the classwork was to be done in the class. So a part of the education happened inside the school and a part of the education happened outside the school at home. That was blending. Learning happening in 2 different ways was blending. So we are already familiar with that. But the only thing now what has changed is there is a lot of technology available for us. Different kinds of technologies available, tools available to us to do this blending very methodically, very systematically, very scientifically, and very productively. Okay, so blending is adding 2 things. And there are many, many names given to it. Lots of different names are there. And some people call it hybrid learning. Some people call it flexible learning. And many other names you can see on the screen. Okay, so there are 2 circles there intersecting one another. On the left side, you see one circle in which there is a picture of, what is this? It's a classroom. So there is a teacher here, there is a board here, and there are students seated. This is a classroom. So what you are perhaps doing already is your classroom, and it is what we call the chat and talk method, right? The classroom method, the lecture method, right? The student-teacher interactive method, right? You can give it whatever name you want. the classroom method. So whatever used to happen in the classroom, this is one way of learning. Then on the right side, in the second circle, I have put a picture of maybe a computer, a laptop or whatever, a desktop or whatever. So learning already is happening this way also. And even those who never tried anything like that, perhaps after the pandemic and after the lockdown, and have had a taste of what it is, we all know today that learning is happening like this. Of course, maybe some of us were not ready for this when the lockdown began, but it was forced upon us. Some of us were already familiar with that. So we used to give some assignments, we used to give some lessons, we used to introduce some resources to the students, and we used to help our students different ways by giving them some kind of either assignment or resource which could be accessed online or offline also, but not in the classroom. Okay, so this was the second category. So learning and teaching were happening two different ways. Now, suppose you go to your kitchen now, take your blender and put a little of this and a little of this and blend them together, and that's blended teaching learning. That's all. So who decides how much? Suppose you want to make chutney, how much of you put this, how much you put this? Who decides? You decide, depending on your family's taste, depending on what you like, what's available, how it tastes good to you, and so many other factors. So how much of this classroom learning, how much of this online learning or offline learning, and how much of each and in what proportion, what way, how to mix, how to blend, etc., are matters of choice. So when we put them together and blend them together, B-learning happens. Hybrid, you know what a hybrid? Biology students know it very well. That's hybrid learning. Another name for that blended learning is mixed mode instruction. Mixed mode, two modes. So this mode, that mode. Okay, let's see it a little in detail. I'll show you one more slide. Perhaps you'll understand that. So here I am putting some conditions. So again, go back to the same example. If I want to make a blended fruit juice, I just don't add any fruit I like. Maybe there is a certain rule, there is a certain recipe, there is a certain standard. So if I mix this fruit with this fruit, perhaps it tastes good. Right? If I add a little milk and a little mango, it becomes a mango shake and that tastes good. But maybe I do not mix everything that unless I want to make a fruit punch. Similarly here, when I blend two things, there are some conditions that I put there. What are the conditions? One, it must be deliberate. Deliberate means I do it consciously, I do it for some purpose. I just do not do it like that. So there is a law, there is a logic, there is a science, there is a rule behind that. I mix them for an objective. I mix them with a purpose in my mind. I just don't do like that. Just close my eyes and put anything into the blender. Does that become any tasty chutney? No. So I must have some logic. No. The same way, so it must be deliberate. And rule number two, the blending must be an effective integration. When you blend them, it must certainly be a better product than A and B. If you are adding A and B, it should be better than A and better than B. Otherwise, there is no point, no? Suppose it's worse than A or worse than B or worse than a combination, there is no point in doing that. There is no need. In fact, our effort is wasted, right? So it must be an effective integration, combination of the two things. Why do we do that? We do that to instigate and support learning. The purpose is to instigate, to motivate better learning, to help students grasp things easier, to help students hold their interest longer, to help students retain their attention to what you are doing, to participate in the class. For you and for your students, learning becomes a happier exercise. So to instigate them and to support them. There may be some weak learners, there may be some fast learners, there may be learners of all speeds and kinds in your class, and to help all of them go together, That is why we blend them. So a part of the face-to-face learning, a little of online learning, the two modes of delivery are added and blended in different ways to create blended learning. Now I have finished my first part of my presentation. What is blended learning? I think you've understood what is blended learning. Do you have any questions now at this stage? If you have any questions, maybe you can type them here so that I can see. I don't see any questions yet. Oh, good. No, sir. Thank you. Good. Okay, let's move on to part 2 now. The part 2 of my presentation is why blend? We are happy with that classroom already. We are happy with what we are doing. Why should we try a new way? Is there any need? My students were happy. I was happy. My students were getting good scores. All of them passed. Last year, we scored 100% in our class. 100% of my students passed the exam. And my 10th class result is like this. My school is so proud of this achievement. So why should we do something different? That's a question that many of you may have. Answer is, I think Namrata is there.
Yes, sir.
Namrata, can you launch the first poll or shall I do it myself?
Okay, sir. I'll launch.
Yeah, please launch poll 1. I'm going to ask you a question. Read that question and read the answers and choose as many answers as you can. The question is, have you ever complained in your class, about your school? Have you made any of these complaints? Complaint 1, oh, I need more time to finish my syllabus. This 365 days, 250 days, 180 working days, 3 hours a day, 1 hour a day is not enough. That is the complaint of some teachers. And the second complaint of some teachers is, oh, my students are different levels, sir. Some of them are very bright. Some of them don't understand anything. They come from different backgrounds and it's very difficult to handle such a heterogeneous group. And the third complaint some teachers have is, my students are far below average level and they are just useless. They are bloody rascals, idiots. I can't teach them at all. Oh, my head is breaking, splitting because of this problem. My students don't understand anything. Right? And the fourth complaint that teachers often have is, my students are not interested, sir, in lectures. I teach them, they are looking away. I teach them, they want to go home. I teach them, they don't pay any attention and they are not getting anything out of it. They are all mud-headed, right? And the last complaint that some teachers have is, my students do not attend classes regularly. Today they come, tomorrow they don't come. The continuity is lost. And 1 week they are there, 1 week, the next week they are not there. So these are 5 different complaints that teachers often make. I mean, I've been a teacher. I taught in a college for 36 years. And after that, I retired. I retired 8 years ago. So totally, I have 44 years of teaching experience. So I made similar complaints when I was a teacher. So you can choose one answer. You can choose more answers also. Already 2 people have polled so far. Others also. I want everybody to give your vote. Yeah, good. Thank you. I think the number is gradually increasing. Wonderful. Great. I think some 8 or 9 people have polled already out of the 32 that are there. Good, 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 good. Wow. The poll will close in the next 30-40 seconds. Please act quick. Please give your vote immediately. I think only some 14-15 people have polled so far. Not even 50% of those who are attending. Why are you shy of giving your vote? Everybody should vote. I don't know if it allows you to give multiple votes, but maybe I don't know how it has been created by Namrata. Anyway, don't worry. Sorry.
I have created multiple choice questions only, sir.
This is a multiple choice question, but multiple answers may not be possible. Anyway, it's okay. Don't worry. Thank you. Right. Okay, we'll stop there. Namrata, you can end the poll and show us the results. share the results, please? Can you see the results on the screen? Can all of you see the results on the screen? Oh, good,
Yes.
good. So some 47% of you said my students are different levels. That's one of the main problems here. And others also have similar problems, and everybody has a different problem. Maybe if the poll allowed you to choose more than one answer, perhaps you would have chosen more answers. But anyway, don't worry about that. I just wanted you to think about this. Okay, maybe Namrata, you can stop the poll now. Right. You can close it. Right. Okay. Right. I'm going on to, this was the question that I showed you. Now, this is the finding. See, many teachers have problems in the class because students are different in their learning styles. I think many of you might have done B.Ed. During your B.Ed course, you might have been told that some students learn visually. Some students learn auditory. Some students learn kinesthetic. They do things, right? They feel things and they learn. So there are various kinds of learners, right? And some students learn mathematical things and numeric abilities extraordinarily well. Some learn music very like that. There are various different kinds of students. Now in a classroom, suppose I have different kinds of students and they are bound to be different kinds of students. My classroom is difficult to handle and my objectives are difficult to achieve, to be achieved. Then different learning preferences. Suppose in my class, I have 50 students and maybe 20 of them can learn very well in the mornings and 20 of them are more active in the evenings. Some of them cannot come to school because they are engaged in something else and they have their own preferences. Maybe if a student wants to lie in the bed and read, perhaps the classroom does not allow that, but that's his preferred style. Maybe somebody would like to sit outside under a tree and read and prepare for the examination. The classroom does not have any scope to allow that. And they are from different backgrounds. Some of them are rich, some of them are poor, some of them are socially disadvantaged, and some of them are very highly privileged. So all possibilities are there. And opportunities. I think you already know this. Some of them have smartphones, some of them do not have, some of them do not even have electricity at home, right? Maybe there might be students in your, I don't know, maybe in some schools there might be students who do not have access to internet, or maybe they cannot even buy textbooks. When I taught in colleges, there were many students like that. There were many students who could not afford to buy even textbooks. And I worked in rural areas. All my 36 years of my career as a teacher was in rural areas. There were many students who could not afford to buy even slippers those days. A pair of Hawaii slippers, they used to come to college with college, I'm not talking about school. They used to come to college barefooted. You can imagine the plight of such students. So many different financial backgrounds and many different opportunities, etc., etc. But despite all that, the conclusion that we can make is different learning, different learning problems require different solutions. Every problem, we cannot have the same solution to every problem, no? If this student has a problem, I need to have a solution that suits his problem. And if there are 5 students in my class who have a different problem, I must suit and I must fit their problem with a different solution. So different solutions are needed. So that's another problem. Now, the advantage with blended learning is it helps us resolve most of the issues that we have, those learning problems that we have, right? Research has shown that blending learning gives us higher, better outcomes. What are outcomes? Outcomes are results, not results in terms of numbers, but the behavioral change that happens in students. So maybe if you have 50 students in the 10th class in your school, 50 students getting a first division is not the outcome, is the output. There is a lot of difference between the two. So 50 students out of 50 students getting a first class is a great credit to the school. The school writes on the board, last year we achieved 100% first division. We are so very happy, we celebrate. That is output. But outcome means what has happened to these students? How have they settled in life? Are they better human beings? Are they better employed? How are they faring in their lives? That is outcome. So outcomes have been evaluated over a long period of time, and research tells us that whenever learning happened the blended way, there was greater retention, there was information flow happening in between, and greater student engagement, higher achievement, better outcomes, etc., etc. This is not what I am telling you, but this is what research tells us. Then the second advantage of blended learning is it helps us integrate technology. Maybe it's still not happening in India, not at the school level at least, or not at maybe the kind of schools that you are working in, maybe, but in other places, what's happening is blended learning is used so very effectively that suppose you have 50 admissions possible in the 10th class. In some colleges and universities outside India, what they do is they can accommodate 200 people for a classroom size of 50. The class size is 50, but they admit 200 people and they have some kind of rotation, some kind of integration, some kind of blending, so that the class size will not exceed 50. All 200 are studying at the same time, but only 50, maximum 50 will be there on any day. And that's of course a very, I'm not going to too many details now. I'm not giving you all the details that are necessary to do that. There are technologies available to do that. For instance, to put it very simply, a student books the days on which he would like to come to school. For instance, sir, next Thursday I'm coming to school. The remaining days I'm not coming. I'm studying at home. He has an option. So Thursday, how many people are going to come to school? The school knows beforehand. And once the 50th seat is filled, the other students cannot join that. Maybe they'll come some other day. I'm just giving you one simple example of how it happens. So classroom time is focused only for very deep, very complex, very difficult, analytical kind of courses. And outside the classroom, the teacher assigns responsibilities to the students, which are, slightly easier and slightly more, involving. The student is deeply engrossed, so they are a little more attention catching. That is one more advantage research has proved. Then styles of learning, I already made a mention of this. So there are auditory learners, verbal learners, visual learners, kinesthetic learners, and many, many other kinds of learners. Some students learn best when they are alone. Some students learn best when they are in groups. I think you might have noticed it in your class also. So many students, I saw at least in my own life, some students don't like to work in a group. They would like to sit alone and they do much faster things. But there are other people who get a lot of benefit by working in a small group, in a pair, in a large group or whatever. Some are logical. Non-logical things they don't understand. Right? History is not very interesting to them. Mathematics is exciting to them. So some people enjoy solving a problem. Some people just sit and then listen and learn and memorize and reproduce. So again, various kinds of learners, and blended learning suits all of them. Maybe when you go into details, today it's only introduction, but when you go into details and how blended learning works, perhaps you will understand this better. And most importantly, the fourth one is perhaps the most important advantage of blended learning. The student becomes the owner of what he is doing. So what happens here? The student has a lot of freedom. Freedom about the timings, freedom about the content, freedom about the courses he studies, freedom about the way he handles things, the freedom about the pace, about the place, etc., etc. You might have heard about the new education policy. in the new education policy that has just been accepted by the government of India, there is a lot of talk about this kind of freedom. For instance, when we studied botany, zoology, chemistry were my combination during the graduate level. That was the only possibility, right? I could not, change the combination that suited me. But today, for instance, once the new education policy comes into force, maybe I can choose botany, zoology, and music. Why not? Botany, zoology, and history. A lot of freedom. I'm talking about one kind of freedom. There are lots of other kinds of freedom. Timings, for instance. Oh, 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock is not convenient to me. I can study only evening 4 o'clock to night 10 o'clock. Why not? Suppose one student says, sir, March is not convenient to me to write the exam, sir. I'll give examinations in April. Why should not we allow that? Or some other student comes and says, sir, why wait till March, sir? I'm already ready, right? In maybe January, I'm ready for the exam. I'd like to finish this course and go to the next course. Why should not we allow that? Now, unfortunately, the current system, the donkey and the horse are tied together. Both are losing. The horse cannot run faster. The donkey cannot run faster. The horse cannot run slower because of the donkey. The donkey cannot run faster because of the horse. I'm sorry if I'm giving a bad example, but that's what it is, right? So that's how it's working. There is a bright student who can do 3 classes in 1 year, and we are stopping him. There is a weak student who needs 3 years to finish one course, and we are pushing him. Both are failing. Both are at a disadvantage. But suppose tomorrow, the freedom that we give to the student in blended learning, suppose we say, okay, whenever you are ready for the 9th examination, you just come and tell me, I can hold an online examination for you. And if you pass the examination, you can go to the next class the next day. Today you finish and tomorrow you join the next class. How beautiful that would be. Will that not be really very interesting? And it's already happening. Outside the colleges and schools, it's already happening. For instance, I am doing 3 or 4 online courses now. Right? Even at I'm in 67th year. So I'm in my 68th year rather. So even at 68 also, I'm doing 3 courses online. One is about emotional intelligence. So suppose I finish this course in 2 months, what's the problem? This is actually a course meant for 6 months, but I'm allowed to do it anytime I want. So that's the advantage of blended. I think you're now convinced that blended learning is better. It's the best of the both worlds, this and this, and also it is putting you together and putting you apart, because part of the learning happens inside the class and part of the learning happens outside the class. When you did your B.Ed, I think part of it used to happen at the college and part of it used to be practice sessions in some school which you were attached to. When I did my B.Ed long ago, maybe about 40 years ago, I did my B.Ed. So those days, I had to go to a school for 15 days. And I had to attach myself there. I had to report like a regular teacher. There, the whole day, I had to be there and I had to do my lessons. I don't know how it is now, but it used to be like that. So what is happening? We are together for some time. We are apart for some time. We are learning at home. We are learning at school. We are learning on chalk and duster, chalk and board, and we are learning on mobile phone and laptop. We are learning in the day, in the night. We are learning on a Sunday or Monday, suiting our convenience. Okay, so these are the advantages. Are you all convinced that blended learning is better than the traditional learning? Say yes or no in the chat box. If you are convinced that it's better than traditional learning, say yes. Good. Thank you. Reshma, Namrata, and Kiran Mai, and Maunika, and Manjushri, Kumari. I think it's scrolling very fast. I'm not able to read all the names. Anjum, Priya, and many of you have said yes. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. So shall we move on to the next part of my presentation? So this is about the advantages. So I told you what blended learning is, and I've also told you what are the advantages of it. Why do we do it? Now the next question is, how do we blend? Okay, sir, we are convinced we want to blend and we have realized the advantages. There are some many good advantages. How do we do this? So this is perhaps your question. I will give you some helpful guidelines. Now, this is almost a similar picture that I showed you on the first slide. So there is a regular classroom here on the left side, and there is an online classroom on the right side. What are the advantages of the regular classroom? All these on the left side, right? Personalization. So the teacher can pay attention to every single student if necessary. Motivation. When I see the teacher in front of me, suppose I switch off my camera now, the attention will not be as great as when I have my camera on. Camera on is a little more, attention grabbing. And similarly, in a classroom, what happens if the teacher is there? I think as teachers, what happens in the class when you are there inside, and when you just leave for 5 minutes, what happens in the class, right? Then feedback you get from students. Feedback is both formal and informal. Even when you are teaching somebody, when you look into the eyes of the student, your students tell you what's happening. Now I am looking at you, for instance, some of you have your cameras on. I know whether you are listening to me or not, right? So relevance. Right? You can relate it to the classroom situations and your students. Discipline, right? Everybody does everything according to a system. Soft skills can be taught because students follow their teachers, right? The students imitate their teachers. If you have good manners, your students are likely to have good manners. And learning from each other, peer learning, all these are advantages of the first kind, that is the traditional kind, or the brick and mortar class. Brick and mortar means the physical classroom, brick and mortar classroom. And on the other side, there is this online virtual classroom. Virtual classroom is online classroom. Online is a slightly wrong nomenclature, because online can be sometimes offline also, but it is virtual, not physical, right? So there is a lot of mobility, there is a beautiful structure there. You can track your students easily. And go back to that poll that I conducted. How much time did I take to give you the results of the poll? Hardly any time, in the next second. So of course, Namrata was there to help me, but even otherwise also, technology allows me to know how many people voted, how much percentage has voted for each one. Suppose you have to do it physically in your classroom. How difficult it would be, even if you asked your students to raise hands, counting them and converting them into percentages is not an easy job. So technology allows you to track. Suppose I want to find out how many students have scored less than 42% in my class last time. Instant. I can get the results just by giving one simple equation, and then maybe I can handle them in a different way. How many people scored this marks? How many people did not appear for the exam? Did not do that, did not do this, did do this, etc. So tracking becomes very easy. Then economy. Suppose I prepared this lesson today, I can use this lesson again tomorrow in case some other school calls me, right? If I created a poll today, perhaps I can use that again. And if I create one lesson, imagine I spent 5,000 rupees to create a video lesson. That video lesson can be used multiple times. That is economy, right? Self-study. Student has great freedom to study at his own place and his own pace. And reach. As a teacher, suppose you are paid a salary by your school. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of your school, but maybe whatever school you are working for, that school pays you some salary, and whatever you are doing is available only to your 40, 50, 200 students. That's all. Nobody else can benefit. Suppose you create a beautiful lesson. Suppose I am creating this lesson today. If I put it on YouTube, tomorrow, maybe hundreds of people interested, those who are not here today, hundreds of others perhaps outside. Sometimes if the lesson is very good, thousands of people, lakhs of people, millions of people may watch it. Sometimes you see, one WhatsApp message, you sometimes, so it is forwarded too many times. You can't forward it to even 5 people. You can forward it to only one person. Forward it to very frequently. There are 3 tick marks there, I think. So that kind of happened. So some lessons, I posted all my slideshows on www.slideshare.net and authorstream.com. Some of my slideshows have been watched by 1 lakh people. I prepared a lesson on the sounds of English sounds, and that is watched by more than 1 lakh people. One slideshow that I prepared reaching 1 lakh people, even if 50% of them or 25% of them benefited from that, how happy I am. Otherwise, what would have happened if I taught in a regular classroom that would have reached only maybe a few hundreds of people. So like that, it helps me reach larger audience. Okay, so going to the previous slide again. So this human capital and this technology, if you combine them, if you put them together, that is one kind of blending. Please remember this is very important. So what is blending and how are we blending? We are blending some part of the classroom teaching and some part of virtual technology-based learning together, and that becomes type 1 blending. I'm repeating. So part of the classroom learning, part of the virtual learning, technology-based learning are combined. That means I allow my students to come to my class and learn something in my classroom. And I also allow my students to learn parts of the curriculum on his own, at his own pace on technology. It can be a video lesson, it can be an audio lesson, it can be a text that I send to my students, it can be a quiz I send to my students, it can be project work that I assign on the basis of what I taught him in the class so that the student finishes it outside, whatever. Right? So that is the second. This is type 1. Then there is a second kind of blending. What is this? Learning happens 2 ways. The first is called synchronous. Synchronous means when the teacher is teaching, the learners are learning, and all learners are learning at the same time. Suppose I go to 10th class B section and I have 40 students in my class. The teacher is teaching from 10 o'clock to 10:40, and all the 40 students are there from 10 o'clock to 10:40. 40 students plus 1 teacher are engaged in the process of teaching, learning at the same time. That is synchronous. Right? Synchronous is again 2 kinds. One is the same time and same place. That is the physical classroom, school situation. And the second kind is same time but different places, like what's happening now. I am teaching sitting in my house. You're all, maybe there are 32 people now participating in this. Other than that, that is 31. 31 people are sitting here now. And if you are listening to me and if you are learning from me, so 31 people are learning and I am teaching. All these 32 people are engaged in the process of teaching, learning at the same time. This is called synchronous teaching, learning. Then there is a second category that is asynchronous. Asynchronous means not the same time, different times, different places. Suppose I record this video. I think perhaps Srinivas Reddy is getting it done. Maybe Namrata perhaps is recording this lesson. And once this lesson is recorded, suppose I put it on YouTube. And if I put it on YouTube, what happens? Those who watch this may watch it anytime they want. They need not be here present today. So they choose a time that's convenient to them. They choose a place. It's their home, their time, their convenience. So things not happening at the same time. The learning is perhaps the same, but the time is different. That is asynchronous. Now, in blending, what happens? So there is a part of learning that is synchronous and a part of learning asynchronous. And both of them are put together. This plus this is blended learning. So my question was, how do we do it? And I showed you 2 ways. What was the first way? So we blend the physical and the virtual. What is the second one? We blend synchronous and asynchronous. So when these 2 kinds of blending are happening, teaching, learning becomes blending. Just because you are using mobile phones in the classroom, it does not become blending. Just because schools are not happening, you are teaching a lesson online. It is not blending. Many people mistake virtual learning for blended learning. Virtual learning is a part of blended learning. Physical classroom learning also is a part of blended learning. If both are happening, if both are possible, if both are judiciously mixed by the teacher, I tell you, while giving a definition, what did I say you? It must be, blending must be a conscious effort, a deliberate effort to effectively help learning happen. Okay, so that's why if these kinds of two different kinds of blending is happening, tomorrow after when lockdown is there, only virtual learning can happen. Classroom learning is not possible now. I don't think schools have reopened and schools are not working. Students and teachers do not have any physical contact. So blending is not happening today. But blending will begin happening the moment schools are reopened, because teachers are today competent. They know how to handle technology. They know how to give a video lesson. They know how to hold an assignment online. How to take a poll, for instance. How to give a quiz, for instance. Teachers are now competent. They have luckily learned these technologies now. I think maybe 50, 60, 70, 80, 100% of teachers, depending on the school where they are working, are conversant with technology. When Namrata was helping me in the morning, I was amazed. She was so quick. The moment I told her, she got what I wanted her to do, and then she did it so quickly. So, I mean, there are people who are competent with technology. They are very quick, and young teachers, luckily all of you are very young teachers, and you can learn things very, very, very quick. Right? So once the schools reopen, what do? You ask yourself, what parts of my syllabus can I teach in the classroom? What parts of my course material, what part of my curriculum, what part of my syllabus should I give to my students for online learning? Can I give this assignment for classwork or virtual work? Can I have this quiz in the classroom, or should I give it after the class or in the evening? Should I play this video in my class now, or should I give this video to my students, ask them to play whenever they want? Should they do some group work in the class and do this project work, or should they go outside and do that project work together? I mean, using the resources available outside. So when you begin taking those decisions, which are not easy, maybe you have to learn them. When you begin taking those decisions, when you employ them properly, when you create those two kinds of situations together, then you become a teacher of blended. Till then, you are only a virtual teacher or maybe a physical teacher. Earlier, before the lockdown, you were a physical teacher. During the lockdown, you are a virtual teacher. But after the lockdown is lifted, you are likely to become a teacher of blended learning, provided you use these two parallel tools that are available to you in a very highly effective manner. Don't say, okay, because Mr. nagaRAJU came and told us blended learning is better, I'm going to do 50% Monday, Wednesday, I'm doing classroom, and Thursday, Saturday, I'm doing virtual learning. No, not that. There must be a judicious application of mind. You must think, right? Is it possible for the students to do on their own, or should I be involved in this? Should it happen in my presence? Okay, so when the teacher begins thinking like that and then judiciously combines the two forms, what are the two forms? The physical plus virtual and the synchronous plus asynchronous. Then it becomes blended learning. Okay, this is the last part of my presentation. Maybe I'll spend another 5-10 minutes and stop there. So what variable? This is not for teachers actually, but maybe this is for all the academicians. This is for the principal. This is for the college management. This is for the course designers. This is for universities and boards of schools. And this is for everybody engaged in the process of education management. So when you decide to blend, what are a few factors that you need to take into account? So what are the course objectives? What is the course content? And what are the learner profiles? What kind of students do you have in your school? And what are the teacher competencies, right? Are the teachers trained or not? This is the responsibility of the school management. So the school management should not just say, okay, teachers, go and do this. How will they do it? They're not trained. They don't know how to do it. It is the responsibility of the schools to give training to the teachers. Like this school has taken this initiative today and has invited me. And this is a great initiative. I must congratulate the management for taking this initiative. Maybe more managements must do similar things, right? And the resources available, how many students have what kind of technology, do they have internet or not? Do they have electricity or not? Do they have smartphones or not? If they do not have smartphones, what can be done? If they do not have internet connectivity, can I do it online? I mean, can I do it virtual but offline? So these are the kinds of things that we need to take into account. These are all decisions that need to be taken. Okay, Namrata, if you are there,
Yes,
please,
sir.
please launch this question.
Sir, it is showing only polling one only it is showing. I have add. Wait a minute, sir. Okay, so now I am sharing.
Good, great. Yeah, so I have a yes no question for all of you. Is training a cost or an investment? I want in case the school principal is here, I want her to vote, and all the teachers also should vote. I want Ms. Srinivas Reddy also to vote for this question. Is training, the training that's given to the teachers, is it an investment or is it a cost? Yes or no means which is yes. I think you should have written cost and investment. Okay, maybe yes means investment, no means cost. Good, good, good. I'm happy. Yes is investment. I think once you vote, you cannot take back your vote. I think be careful. Yes is investment. I'm very happy that maybe we can stop here. Don't worry about what you voted. Maybe one or two of you might have either you did not get the question right, or maybe there was some problem in showing it. So yes or no is not clear. What is yes, what is no. But what I think is that whatever money is invested on training, not only to the teachers, any field, anywhere, can never be a cost. It is always, of course, luckily, most of 94% of the people who voted. I think you can end the poll and show the results. Yeah, end the poll, please. Yes. So maybe that one vote in favor of cost also perhaps I think is done by mistake. But maybe even if you think separately, it's not a problem. But I mean, it's very obvious that every rupee that every school and college invests in training its teachers is a long-term investment. Managements, please don't think, oh, these teachers are anyway going to leave. They are going to work this year and not work next year. And why should I invest this money? Why should I waste this money? Don't think like that. A teacher trained is a trained teacher anyway. Even if she goes and joins some other school, also it's going to be a great investment. And your own retention, suppose you have invested money on teachers, your own investment is going to fetch you back. I don't think teachers will leave a good school where a lot of training is available. The moment a teacher realizes, oh, here is what my future, here is, I'm safe, here is my future ensured, I think teachers will retain, retention will be very high. There won't be any attrition. In fact, a trained teacher lost is, something very unfortunate for a management, for a school. Right, coming back to that. Okay, will you please stop that and close this? Right, so I have a last question for you. With this, I end my speech. I think I have 5 minutes left. So what problems can technology, you need not launch the poll, Namrata, but maybe they can see it on the screen. What problems can technology solve? I think all of you will predominantly, overwhelmingly, unanimously will tell me that technology can solve all these problems. The problem of time, the problem of budget, the problem of the student pace, and greater perfection, greater efficiency. All these are problems that can be resolved once you have technology. Luckily, I understand that your school is investing in your training and also in giving this technology to you. And I'm very happy. I congratulate your principal, your management, and all those who are engaged in bringing this to you. And I also congratulate the Lions Club for making this available to you. So technology goes where the trainer cannot go. So technology is a far greater reach. Right, tomorrow, I mean, maybe today you may have some students who do not have technology, who may do not have internet, who do not have electricity like that. Like it was like the same situation when I was a teacher. There were students who did not have textbooks, but that did not stop us from progressing. No, so this is only a temporary phase. I mean, you need not worry too much about the students who do not have technology. You manage with the students who have access to technology. Maybe the government is working on that. The policy makers are working on that. Very soon, perhaps, I think maybe it won't take longer than 1 or 2 years when the government will distribute free tablets to all students, free mobile phones to all the students. Lots of technology will come to all schools. I think that's not very far because the government has realized that this is the future. This is where, I mean, investment must be made. And once that happens, I think your problems will be resolved. And I think you should start paying greater attention to the lots of different possibilities that you have. So when you start blending, when you start trying out new things, and when you give yourself to what you're doing, when you become a little more passionate about your profession, I think great results can be achieved. I wish you all the best. And thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. And I think I should stop here. So this is my email address. In case you have any questions, you can write to me, nagaRAJU@gmail.com. And I must once again thank the Lions Club and also the school management for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with you. We have some 2-3 minutes time. I can take 2 or 3 questions from you in case you have any.
nagaRAJU sir, thank you so much for a wonderful session.
Thank you so much. Can we take 2 or 3 questions?
Teachers, if you have any questions, please. It's a very great thing that he has given us the time to ask the questions. To utilize that time and ask the questions. If you have any doubts, you can ask him.
Many of you are thanking me. That's okay. Good. Thank you very much. I'm happy that you liked it. But in case you have any further doubts and questions, I appreciate it. Okay.
I think my teachers didn't have any doubts, sir. You're very good in explaining.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So that's where I stop. Thank you once again for the wonderful opportunity.
So thank you, sir, for spending your precious time for us. And we are pleasure to have you here, sir, and sharing your experience about blended learning and about the new education policy also. You inspired all of us, and you also inspired us that age is not a hurdle to learn the new skill. So we are lucky to have you here, sir. So we learned many things and you motivated us to learn many things. So adopt the new technology. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. So there is a question here, sorry. What sort of strategies to make the students to make them attend classes regularly?
Yes,
somebody has asked this question. Kiran Garu, do you have 1 or 2 minutes to answer this question?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Sure.
There is a question which says, what sort of strategies can we apply to help students attend classes? So there are 2 things in this question. One, are the students uniformly not attending school, I mean any class, or they are not attending your class? In case they are not attending your class and are attending other classes, maybe you are the reason for that. You are responsible for that, and then you need to look at your own strategy that you use in your class, and you need to make your lessons more interesting. You need to help use maybe whatever technologies are needed. You need to make your lessons more impressive. So there is some problem with the tool that you are using, with the technology that you are using, with the method you are using, with the subject that you are teaching, with the passion that you put into what you are doing, etc., etc. If the student is not uniformly coming to any of the class, if it's not coming to college at all, that's a social problem, that's an economic problem. Maybe you have to bring it to the notice of your principal, and you need to have a strategy, you need to have a parents meeting, or if possible and convenient, you must visit the children's home, and you must take the parents into confidence, and you must coax them, persuade them, convince them, and tell them, because at that age they do not realize the value of what they are missing. So in case necessary, you need to do this. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, sir. So, Venkat sir, shall I start the next session, sir?
Yes, madam.
Okay, sir. Thank
Sir
you.
is on line.
So, okay,
Ram
sir.
Maharaj.
Our next